Oh, these are perfect. These are at the perfect stage right now. They're just falling straight off the. Just falling straight off the stems into my hands. But I thought I'd come and show you Pendulous Sedge, since last Wild Biome project it wasn't in season. I was using the seed and I was showing you what I did with the seed, but I thought it would be a good opportunity just to show you what Pendulous Sedge looks like at this time of year when it's ripe for picking, because it was a big staple of mine last year, last Wild Biome project, and this is the time that you really have to gather it, during August, September, before it falls off the stems, which it tends to hold on to unless something's knocked it or there's been any heavy winds. It's generally okay. So yeah, I'm just going around having a look for a few to harvest. I mean, because I've already got a potato sack full, well, you've seen my store on the last video, and I probably will not need to harvest an awful lot. I'll see how it goes. But there's just so much in here, so much. And I am kind of sad because just over in that direction there was an amazing patch of Pendulous Sedge, and they've cleared everything just to build a children's play area. So one of my best supplies of Pendulous Sedge is now occupied and I can't get to it. If there is any left, I don't know how much they cleared it, which is a real shame, but there is still loads in this wood. There's loads to go around. And you can hear people walking past because we're not far off the path. It's the place that I know is quite a popular walking spot, and it's children's holidays, so it's still quite busy. But you can see why it takes quite a while to gather this, because you only get so much per handful, and you've got to spend a few hours out here in the woods just to gather enough. But we'll see how long I stay out here. I might gather a little bit more to add to my stores. I think I can squeeze a bit more into the bin. So you can identify Pendulous Sedge quite easily by these distinct drooping seed clusters that are like pendulums when they sway in the wind. But they're it's very easy to identify because you can see how it's drooping right now, and the leaves are very reed-like, but they're not a reed. And there's a simple rhyme that can help you identify Pendulous Sedge, and that is that sedges have edges, which means that they have that triangular stem, rushes around, and grasses have knees. There's a grass. I don't know if I can get close to it. Grasses have knees that bend to the ground. So there's easy ways to identify the difference, and as you can see there's a grass right there that looks completely different to Pendulous Sedge. But the reason why I love this plant so much is that it's very easy to gather. It holds onto its seeds, and this is something our hunter-gatherers would have taken advantage of, because there'd just be so much of this lying around in the woodland, and they could just go and gather it, store it, and make a simple bread out of it over a fire. There is a really simple way to harvest Pendulous Sedge. and that is to cup the seeds in your hand like this and just slide up the stem, and when they're ripe they just come straight out into your hand, and you can gather a lot this way. And then afterwards you have this, there's not really any seeds on there, and this is how, also this is something that I seen on Ray Mears, the only video that I seen on Pendulous Sedge years ago before more were made, and he mentioned that this is how hunter-gatherers would have known that other hunter-gatherers had gone past, because the Pendulous Sedge would have been cleared completely off the stem. Another thing that's great about Pendulous Sedge is that the seeds are very resistant to a fungus called ergot, which is very common on grass, and ergot is the precursor to LSD, and it used to cause some deaths in medieval times when the wheat crop was infected, and they'd eat too much of the ergot fungus. Now with Pendulous Sedge, it is very resistant to this, so it's never going to grow on this plant, which means that you can be very safe in harvesting it and not have to worry about checking seeds and making sure they're not contaminated. So it's a very safe wild seed to harvest. Well, as you saw in the last Wild Biome project, I was using it a lot in cookies and a lot of baking, and it's just such a valuable resource. I just can't stress that enough. It's just something that, if we're losing our woodlands, I mean, it does grow in more open ground, but the woodlands, the partial shade, it really helps it to thrive. And I mean, you do find it on riverbanks too. You find it out in the open, but for me, I have always found it in more woodland type environments. This is one of the most important things to think about when you're eating only wild food, is that trying to find your calories out in the wild is not that simple. You've got, of course, you can hunt, you can dig up roots, that's not so simple either. But everything takes effort, expenditure of some kind of energy, and Pendulous Sedge seeds are just jam-packed with so much goodness. They're just such rich little seeds that this time of year you can gather so much. I could probably, if I wasn't filming, I could fill this bucket up in maybe 2 or 3 hours, and that would last me maybe, including diversity of eating other things too, this would probably last me about a month. I think I used about 2/3 of a potato sack during the Wild Biome project, and yeah, it's just one of my favourite go-to seeds. It's so easy to process, it's so easy to harvest, and but yeah, so you just want to get out into your woodlands now. This time of year, it's perfect. The great thing as well about harvesting this plant is that as you're harvesting, you can never get 100% of the seeds, so you are actually spreading a bit back to nature and helping it to grow further. So this is about an hour of harvesting. There's actually quite a lot in there now. So I'm going to take that home, add that to my stash, and yeah, that was a nice productive hour. So this is some footage that I took last year of processing Pendulous Sedge seed. So once you've got it home and you've got it gathered, it's very, very simple. I've kind of got this down to a knack now with you just need a handheld food processor, something you can buy from Dunelm or any of these stores, and it's not powerful enough to break the seeds up. It's just enough to split the husks off of the seed, and you do this. You just give this a good few turns, put it into a container, into a bowl, and with a light breeze, just make sure it's windy that day. You just put it from bowl to bowl, and let the winds blow the loose husk and dust out of the seed. And you repeat this for a few more times until you end up with this amazing brown seed, little brown seed. And you just give this a blitz up in a blender, a powerful blender like a Vitamix, or you could even use a pestle and mortar if you want to do it the old-fashioned way. And you'll end up with an amazing, nutty, delicious flour. And once you've made your flour, you can do so many amazing things with it. I've done all sorts in the past. I've made bread. I've made cookies with pendulous sedge seed. There's just so much. Just play around with it in the kitchen. Do what you want to do with it. And but on this instance, I made a fruit crumble. And the crumble mixture, I did use a blend of acorn flour and chestnut flour and pendulous sedge flour. It's so simple to make. You just add a little bit of honey, a little bit of venison tallow, or you could use normal ingredients, demerara sugar and butter. Once I've added the fruit and added the crumble on top, you just bake it in the oven. Just follow a traditional recipe really, and just change it up for the pendulous sedge. You could use 100% pendulous sedge flour in this recipe. I have done it before and it is absolutely delicious as a crumble. And as you can see, it just looks so good and it tastes so good. And I hope you enjoy your own journey, experiencing and learning and meeting this beautiful seed.